You're muted.
I just realized I was muted. Thanks everybody for joining us today. Just give me 1 second. Okay, so welcome to today's meeting. I hope everybody had a good weekend. So wait, we need to go to the what's it called?
Yeah, let me read the little
You do that.
give everybody the heads up. So pursuant to Chapter 2 of the Acts of 2023, an act relative to extending certain COVID-19 measures adopted during the state of emergency signed into law on March 29th, 2023. This meeting will be conducted via remote participation. No in-person attendance by members of the public will be permitted. This meeting will be live streamed, but will have no option for public participation. To view or listen only, visit the YouTube link posted on our agenda on the town's webpage.
Perfect. And then do we do attendance as well?
Yeah, you want to just do a quick roll call, just make sure everybody can hear and see everybody else.
Sounds good. We'll do a roll call. We have Becca Meekins
Present.
and Cynthia Moore.
Present.
Then we have Ashish.
Present.
And then I see we have Sean Thompson.
Present.
And then Sarah. Which one do you go by?
Sarah. Yep.
Sarah, perfect. And I, Mary Ibrahimi, is also present. Oh, and then we have also Kristen. Sorry.
Hi, everyone.
Thanks for joining us.
Hi, Kristen.
Great.
Hello.
Wonderful. Okay. We good for intro and all of that? All right. Okay. So what do we have on our agenda today? Firstly, wanted to introduce our select board liaison, who is Kristen Wickstead. Thanks for joining our meeting today. I'll give you an opportunity to kind of introduce yourself and talk a little bit about your role here as liaison.
Yeah, sure. Thanks for having me. So the liaison situation is sort of whatever you need it to be. We're sort of we're at your service if you would like if you ever have questions for the select board, if you have anything you want us to help you out with, you have my contact info, and then I can bring it up to them in my report if we don't get it on an agenda in time or that kind of thing. But mostly I'm just here to support you and all your endeavors. So if you have an event or something that people are coming with, I'm going to try and make it and try and be here to support you any way that I can. That's kind of it. If anyone has any questions, I'm happy to answer them, or going forward, if you ever want to send me an email, I can do a reply all to the email for this meeting that all your email addresses are on, so then you'll have mine handy. I can do that after.
I think that's helpful. Do a little reply all, and then everybody can have access to your email as well if anybody has any questions.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I guess Kristen's role really is to give us access directly to the select board and be able to share what's going on here.
And I can include whatever you want me to say or whatever I think is important. If I watch your meeting, even if I'm not part of the meeting and I just watch it on YouTube or whatever, I could include it in my report. That's generally what the main thing that we do with our liaison jobs, but sometimes I get a little more involved than others.
Wonderful. Does anybody have any questions for Kristen or anybody else? Yeah, go for it. Cynthia.
Hi, Kristen. Thanks
Hi,
for being here
Cynthia.
today.
Hi.
So this might not be the right question to you. So if you could tell me where to direct it to, that would be great. So as you know, we have our town meeting, right? And hopefully always during good weather, not broiling hot, not too cold, right?
Right.
And I understand that there's like a piece of the town meeting that we control about like where and when. And then there's a piece of the town meeting that we may not control, like under state statute. And the one thing I haven't been able to figure out over all these years is how is it that we're enabling citizens who are homebound? So they are, elderly or immune compromised or whatever it is, maybe they've got a body cast, who knows? How are we enabling citizens to participate in democracy we don't have a way to do that is what I'm trying to say. I need dinner. My blood pressure's low, but so you have to be in person in order to be present, right? And certainly, if you want an umbrella, we could do that. If you want, if you need like a more comfortable seat or like there's lots of like accommodations like that. But the one thing I haven't been able to figure out is how is our town enabling equal access to participate in democracy to a homebound citizen? And we have people in town who are homebound and they're not able to come to the town meeting. And, I've sent emails over the years and I just have never found that answer. The answer so far has been they don't participate.
Right.
And
that's true.
And I don't think it's like a Northborough made the decision, right? I don't think it's that. But, when I call the state says the town has the decision. When I ask the town says the state has the decision. And there's sort of like this no man's land and it doesn't get resolved. And, I know this is going to sound harsh, but it's discrimination. So if you've got a homebound person with a disability that can't leave, they can't participate in democracy unless they leave. So I'd love for us to find a pathway forward. So this time next year, we're celebrating a new process. And I wasn't sure if it was you guys or someone else.
No, I think we would be the people you would start with. So I asked about this last year. And I was even just thinking about like when my kids were little, my husband worked at night a lot and town meeting tends to go pretty late, later than a lot of high school babysitters would want to stay. So I would have had a really hard time going to town meeting and staying the entire time. And so I didn't go for years and years. I just didn't go and I didn't participate. And even just that, which seems like a fairly solvable problem. And this year, town meeting was 2 nights. The first night they did have babysitting and there were quite a few people there. Even just that, I was told last year when I first asked about it, that it's in our town charter that town meeting has to be the, whatever it is, 3rd Monday night of April every year. So that's what they mean when they say it's up to the town, like it's in the town charter when town meeting happens. I don't know that it's in the town charter where town meeting happens, because obviously for a couple of years we had it on the football field and the charter was not changed for that. So I can ask some more questions about, how we can get homebound people more involved. I did see a little bit about that online this year too, before town meeting. And I think you're right, it is discriminatory and it's not real. I think it's probably mostly up to the town and not the state. The state would have to approve any changes we make, but
Okay.
that's pretty much just paperwork as far as I can tell. Like this year we changed the name of our board from Board of Selectmen to Select Board at the town meeting. It's not official yet because the state has to like check a box and sign a couple things, but I mean, there's no reason that they wouldn't. So I don't know if it seems to me like if we're getting homebound people out, it also makes sense to consider changing the day of town meeting and making it during the day. Because right now it's in the evening. It starts at 6 p.m. and generally goes till 10 p.m. And that's, that's not convenient for a lot of people. So that's another thing to consider. But I mean, the thing is that voting in elections, right, used to have to be in person, and they figured out a way to make that, have absentee voting. So I wonder if we look and see what other towns are doing.
Yeah, I just would love to celebrate, celebrate a difference next year, right? Celebrate
Yeah.
having solved it next year. I think that would be
Yeah.
great.
Yeah, it's a great idea. So I'll ask some questions.
Okay. And then I don't mean to monopolize the meeting, but at a totally different topic.
Okay.
Just, you see all these terrible weather events out there, like the crazy stuff in Florida, and like my head just spins what's going on, right? And I wonder if the town has an evacuation plan for its most vulnerable citizens. So these people who are homebound, or the people who are reliant upon, generators or whatever, people who are oxygen and breathers and ventilators or whatever. So if we were to have some sort of a natural disaster here in town, do we have a plan? Do we have the citizens self-identify? Do we have the fire department knows there's 20 of us? Do we have a plan for disaster assistance, not after the fact, but disaster evacuation, whatever, for our most vulnerable population? And I'd wondered that watching all the terrible nightly news. It's horrible. I don't even like to watch nightly news anymore.
I know.
But God forbid we had a train go by with chemicals like that happened in Texas, and the whole area has to be evacuated. Or how are we supporting citizens that have differences, mobility or health or whatever, in order to make that safety plan happen?
Okay. I would
just
think
wonder.
people would have to opt in if we were going to if the
Sure.
fire and police were going to make a list. I know during, I got a tour of the police station, and Chief Liver was showing me how during the pandemic, where they would meet at the beginning of it, where they would meet, they do have an emergency response area. And actually the fire chief is in charge of our town's emergency response and stuff like that. So I'm sure they would be the two departments to ask about that, but I'm happy to dig in and send some emails and ask about, what we have in, as far as being prepared goes, and if there is something we could, people can opt into and say, I want to be on that list of vulnerable people. So if there is something that happens, I'm already one of the people, they know exactly where I am and how to get to me.
Yes, right, exactly. Yeah. Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
And Cynthia, as part of the self-evaluation and transition plan, they review some of or all of the policies that the town has in place, and looks for gaps like that in those plans, and will identify things like that for us as well.
Cool.
There is also a local emergency preparedness committee that is managed by the fire department. There's part-time staff in the fire department that provides the staff assistance to that committee. And it's essentially combined school, town administration, and public safety. And there's an emergency preparedness plan that they update. And disaster response, recovery, those things are all covered in the plan. One of the challenges is getting people to provide the information, obviously. So there's a lot of information sharing between the senior center, family youth services, the health department, the fire department. Of course, we utilize Code Red, which is an emergency response system where we can send out, but only to people who sign up, emergency communications related to disaster. So the pieces are all in place. I think that one of the things we're going to talk about tonight, which is the ADA self-evaluation and transition plan, may offer us some opportunity to gather more input from the public about how we can make sure that we're getting our most vulnerable populations access, and we know how to reach them in those emergency situations. So that's actually really a great transition to our next our next topic. If the chair is ready.
Yep, perfect. Does anybody have any more questions on? Nope, perfect. Then we can move on to the next thing on the agenda. Becca, if you want to go ahead, an update on the ADA self-evaluation and transition plan project.
Sure. So I'll get us started. So as the committee knows, Town of Northborough received the grant from Massachusetts Office on Disability to conduct a ADA self-evaluation and transition plan, which shockingly the town has not undertaken before. So it's an important plan for us to put together, and it will provide the town with sort of a roadmap moving forward on how we can make sure that we are providing, accessibility, accommodations, and that we're aware of some of the challenges that, people who have disabilities face, and ways that we can sort of meet those challenges. So we put out a request for quotes. We signed a contract with Disability Access Consultants. They're a nationwide company. They do have local offices. And there's sort of two pieces to this project. The first is a public input piece, which Sean Thompson, the facilities manager, is going to go over with you tonight. And then there's the physical, looking at the physical facilities. So, all of our town buildings, our parks, our infrastructure, and where are the gaps? How do we bridge the gaps, and how much is it going to cost? So those are all sort of the pieces to the puzzle. But tonight, I invited Sean here. He has sort of spearheaded this project. He wrote the grant application. He received the grant funding, and he's sort of, moving this project along. So I'm going to turn it over to Sean. Sean, do you want to just give a little bit of an update in terms of the public input process, and then sort of what the committee can expect moving forward?
Yeah, so right now they are out evaluating the sidewalks and roadways. They started about a week and a half ago. Toward the middle of end of next week is when they'll start with the actual buildings and the parks and playgrounds. What the purpose of all this is like Becca said, they're trying to gather all the information, and they're just going to point out to us where our shortfalls are. And then it's up to us as a community to prioritize which way, in which direction, and how quickly we want to do each different project. So the importance of the public input is it's going to allow us to, one, get feedback from the community, because there may be things that we're just not even noticing that are impacting individuals on a daily basis. And that way, when we go to start budgeting for these projects, we know what means most to the community and where we really need to focus the dollars in the first place. So it's just this whole evaluation, it looks at website access, it looks at town policies and procedures, it looks at physical barriers. So it's just really a full bird's eye view scope of the whole town and where we need to be better. And then getting the input from staff and the public allows us to prioritize these projects to meet the most pressing needs as they're seen from everybody's perspective.
Thanks, Sean. So in terms of how we're going to collect input, I think this is important. So the plan is to kick off the input seeking today. Today's day one. We're going to run the surveys for 30 days. So through the month of May, surveys will be available on the town website. We've, in partnership with DAC, created flyers that we will put up that have QR codes. We will put copies of surveys, hard copies of surveys, in public buildings if there are people who have challenges with respect to internet or computers. All of the surveys are accessible. DAC's website is fully accessible. The surveys that they've developed are accessible, meaning, anybody who has difficulty reading can use software to read back the surveys, and those will work correctly in terms of color contrast. So all of those requirements are met through DAC. So we'll collect input for 30 days. The input will go directly to DAC. It will be used in the draft of the self-evaluation and transition plan. At the same time that we're collecting input from the public, we will also put together DAC has put together a staff survey, which we will distribute to all staff internally during May. We'll collect that input as well, which will go into the plan. And then while all this is happening, the consultants will also continue to evaluate our facilities and infrastructure, and all of that will go into the plan. Sean, do you want to talk a little bit about timeline? What to
Yep,
expect next?
So like Becca said, the public input will end at the end of May, and then their first draft of the plan will come to us around the 6th of June. And that will give us a few weeks to comb through it and just make sure that everything is in order, and then we'll present it to the Board of Selectmen. This plan is constantly evolving and changing because we're going to be introducing new buildings and other various changes during the town. So it's not a plan that gets adopted. It's like a living document. It's always going to be changing and evolving as the town changes and evolves. So it's just the important part is getting the information as we are now, and then just continuing to move in the right direction. So the plan will be, like I said, the rough draft will be submitted on the 6th. We'll comb through it. We'll present it on the 26th, and then it goes to the state by the 30th for approval. Once it gets approved on that end, then going into the fall, we can start applying for grants for funding to complete some of the projects. So while obviously the budget's already set for FY24, there will still be certain things in that plan that are, let's say, low-hanging fruit, just really inexpensive ways to improve the quality and access for people in town that we can tackle in this fiscal year. And then with the public input surveys and meetings with yourselves and staff members, we can start budgeting and applying for grants so that we can start taking on bigger projects in FY25 and going forward.
Thank you, Sean. So we're happy to take questions. I think for me, the goal is for this committee to sort of guide that prioritization process once, once the plan is finalized, once we've received the input, because there's going to be a lot to get our arms around, frankly. I've done these plans in other towns, and it can be overwhelming at first, because there's so much that we can do better, frankly. And so, figuring out what's important to the community, which will hopefully be gathered through that input. And then this committee, I really see it sort of driving the bus in terms of making recommendations to staff on which projects should be prioritized for construction funding, because that funding comes around once a year in the fall. And you've got one bite at the apple every year. And so we want to make sure that we know which projects are most important to set us up for the most success in applying for those grants. So that's the goal. Happy to take questions.
I was just going to say, I don't think I have any questions at the moment, but I appreciate, Sean, the timeline and the detail on this. This is really helpful to kind of picture what the survey timeline will look like, and as well, like what the goal of our committee here should be. Cynthia, go ahead. Oh no, you're muted.
Just 2 quick questions for you, Sean. Sorry about that.
Yeah, no problem.
The first one is the survey available in a language other than English, or will it only be in English?
So it's only in English now, but so they don't have translators on their staff with DAC. But if we have translators available and we get it translated, we can send it to them and they'll put it up on the website for us. Because that's one of the questions we asked initially.
Yeah, and some technology, depending upon what you use, might have that toggle, right?
Mhm.
It's not always accurate, but that might be another way to think about that. So that was my first question, was about the language. And then the second question is, I guess it's more of a statement. You probably guys are all over this, but whenever I see a survey, I always look for whether or not they're gender inclusive. So is it always he or she and not they, or, and so I'll just let you know that that's one of the things I'll be looking for, is to make sure that the wording is gender inclusive or gender neutral. And I just hope that thought is useful in your planning as well.
Thank you.
It's a pet peeve of mine as well. I always look for they. And I always try to change he/she to they, because they covers all the bases. So thank you for that, Cynthia. Anything else?
I look forward to seeing it when you present it at the end of May, and when I or in June, whenever, when I well, you're just setting it up today, did you say, or are the links already on the website and stuff? Because I can share it on my social media. Not that I have a zillions of followers, but I have a handful. So
It's either today or tomorrow.
It runs the 2nd through the 31st. So it'll
okay,
be
so it'll
tomorrow.
be tomorrow. All right, so I'll look for it tomorrow. I'll make a note to myself then, and then start sharing. Great, thanks.
I wasn't as sure which language. I know at one point we had 17 languages in town. I've lost track of it. I haven't kept track of it. I was wondering what are our most populous languages and how can we help get it translated so that we can make sure that every resident participates.
I do not know offhand. I assume it's included in the census data that we have, the most recent census data from 2020. If we received a request to translate, that's obviously an accommodation request, and we would have to meet that request per the ADA. I can talk to Sean more about reaching out to DAC to see what we can do about language inclusivity with respect to the survey. So we can do that tomorrow, Sean.
Mhm.
Sure.
But I have my hand raised. Sorry about this, but where is it on the website? What website is it on when you refer to the website? Is it the town's website? And it's on the main page of the town's website, or is it somewhere else within the town's website?
That's a great question. So yes, it will be on the town's website, and we will what we call sticky it. I hate that term, but sticky it at the top of town news, which is like right on the front page. There's like a list of like what's happening in town. And once it goes live tomorrow, we'll get it on the top of that list, which will take people to a page, land on a page where they can access the survey.
Thank you.
I'm wondering if or what your expectation is of how many people you hope or see responding to the survey.
I mean, my hope is that we, like, in the ideal world, we'd get a response from everybody, right? Definitely more than 50%. The more feedback we get, the better it's going to be for us overall, because we're going to cover so many different viewpoints. And it just allows it to be a more inclusive process. And that's the whole point of this, is to figure out where we're excluding people, address those issues, and move forward in a positive direction from here on out. So my hope is that we get everybody to give their input. We know that's not going to be the case, but the more people, the better.
Yeah, absolutely. Of course. The more people who respond, the more information, the more data we have to, help support. Yeah, sounds good.
And, we will use all the tools that we have as staff at our disposal, but, one of the most powerful tools, has always been word of mouth. And, Sean and I are staff, but you all are, members of this community, you live here. So if you all could share it on your pages, let people know, the goal really is to get as much input as possible, in whatever way that we can. We want to hear what people have to say, and the more people we hear from, the more robust the plan will be, and the better picture it will give us about, how to move forward. So certainly I will, tomorrow, once the links are foamed up and on the page, I will send out a link to everyone on the committee, so you all have it and can share it on your personal, whatever you're comfortable with, your personal pages, with your neighbors, etc. Because we really do want to get as much input as we possibly can. That's the goal.
That's helpful. Thanks, Becca. And thank you, Sean. Does anybody have any more questions? No? Okay, sounds good. Then we can move on to the next thing on the agenda, which is the town administrator recruitment process update.
Sean, you don't have to, you're welcome to stick around and hang out, but certainly don't feel like you're obligated. Thank you
All
for
right.
jumping in tonight. I appreciate it.
Yeah, no
Thanks for
problem.
coming in.
I would stick around, but my wife isn't home, so I gotta go make sure the kids aren't destroying my house.
Thanks,
Nice
Sean.
meeting you all. If you have any
Bye.
questions, Becca has my email. Feel free to reach out. Have a good
Bye,
night.
Sean. Thank you.
Have a
Bye-bye.
good night.
So I did want to provide the committee with an update, but actually, Kristen, since you, I don't want to put you on the spot, but if you want to give an update about the town administrator search, since you're, leading that.
Well, sort of. Julianne and I have the next step in the process. So there was a application period for the 3 at-large spots for the town administrator selection committee. I'm not sure how closely all of you have been following this, but the selection committee will convene in the end of May and the beginning of June and have several meetings that will be facilitated by the consultants we hired to help us find a new town administrator. And the selection committee, we had a lot of discussion at our last couple of select board meetings, what that makeup of that committee should be. And they ended up with 7 people. And there's a representative from one of the school committees, from the planning board, from the select board, from appropriations or the finance committee, and then 3 at-large members, so 7 people total. I made a big stink that I wanted at least one person from this committee represented, and they didn't manage to require that because they were a little bit worried that one of you might not be available, which was a fair thing to worry about. So anyway, but Miriam did managed to get her application in. So tomorrow night, Julianne Hirsch and I were the interview subcommittee of the select board, and we will be interviewing the 4 candidates who did submit applications for these 3 slots. So we have Miriam, and then we have 3 other people to interview, and then we'll make a recommendation, and then we'll vote on it, on who those 3 people are at our next meeting, which will be the day before the election. So it's the 8th, Monday night, the 8th. And so that's kind of where my job stops, but that is the most recent thing. And then I don't know, Becca, what would you like to, I'm sure you have a million things you can add about what happens after that or what has been happening maybe? No,
that was great. I wanted the committee to know that Miriam did submit an application, and given the board's strong support for DEIB representation, I'm optimistic that this committee will have representation on the screening committee. Obviously, there's a process that still needs to play out, which, like Kristen said, she'll be involved in. In terms of sort of what happens after that, yes, applications are due on May 8th. So the consultant will do an initial screening and then submit, usually it's 7 to 9 applicants to the screening committee to conduct first round interviews. That process will be overseen by the consultant. They'll help with questions, they'll schedule interviews, and sort of shepherd the committee through that process. And then what comes out of that is 3 to 4 finalists who get recommended to the select board for final interviews. The select board will interview the finalists, make a selection, and then I'm hopeful that, before the end of the summer, we'll have a new town administrator. So that's sort of what to expect moving forward. I do want this committee to be involved, which is why I did ask Miriam as chair if she would be interested in applying, and she did do that. So I think it's important that whoever the new town administrator is, they understand that DEI is an important, is a priority for Northborough. It's a priority for staff, and I think it's a priority for the board and for residents. And so making sure that the applicants understand that, and they're willing to, participate in that work, I think is going to be very important. So thank you, Miriam. I appreciate you being willing to volunteer your time and your efforts toward helping the board find their next TA.
Yeah, of course. No, I look forward to my interview tomorrow with Kristen and why is her name?
Julianne.
Julianne. Her name just left my mind entirely.
I know.
I look forward to our interview
Yeah.
tomorrow, but moving forward, of course, DEI is incredibly important and a priority, as we're in this committee, a priority for our town moving forward. So yeah, I really do hope that is centered in whoever is picked as the next town administrator.
Yeah, and one other thing I can add is if anyone else on this committee would like an opportunity to just have a phone call with the consultants, they've been great about reaching out to members of boards and committees of all different, all the different boards and committees. If people want to speak to them, they'll even speak to a resident if it's someone who has some kind of, sort of long-term knowledge or particular background in volunteering that they wanted to share. So if anyone, and this goes for members of the committee who aren't here tonight also, if they would like to speak to either Bob or Buzz, that's their names. Everyone in town hall is named Bob lately because the interim town administrator is also Bob, different Bob. But yeah, so Bob and Buzz have been great about just trying to pick as many brains as they can. So when they bring forth candidates to the selection committee, they feel like they're tapping into the people who are most likely to succeed. So if you would like to speak to them, you can reach out. You can reach out through me.
That's good to know. Thanks for that.
Sure.
Okay. Do we have anything else? Does anybody have any other questions, comments about the town admin process? I think that's really good to know that, they're really happy the consultants are really happy to speak to anyone. That's really good to know. And I'll definitely, you can send out an email to the rest of the members of the committee who aren't here and let them know that if they're interested in, sharing whatever their concerns or whatever their comments are, that's great.
Yeah, maybe when I do that reply all email, I'll mention that.
Sure. That
Yeah.
sounds good. Yep. So if we're good with that, does anybody have anything else they want to discuss tonight at our meeting? Me neither. Sounds good. Then we can adjourn
I
the
do have
meeting.
one, can I do,
Oh,
I
go
do have
ahead.
one, Kristen. I might have missed it in the last meeting, so forgive me if I did. Did we finally settle on, I know at one point we were talking about a calendar of events to start with for the year. And, I don't recall seeing it. I may have missed it. That's probably the likely thing that is that I missed it, right? But I was wondering if we had done that or if it's still on our to-do list. Does that ring a bell?
To me?
No,
Oh,
just to,
So,
Okay, good.
yeah, so we did, the town did put, after the DEI committee's initial recommendations, we established a community calendar. So we always had a public meeting calendar, but we didn't have
right.
a community calendar. So the community calendar was established. It's up on the front page of the website, right next to the public meeting calendar. And it just has, various community events, workshops, a lot of the Be Well wellness programming is publicized through that calendar.
Okay, I think I just missed it. I see it now. I just Googled it. I see it now because I kept seeing the town calendar. So thank you.
It's there, right? Yeah. Did you say you saw it? Oh, okay. Okay. Yeah, so you have to hit the calendar tab, but once you hit the calendar tab, there's a list of upcoming events, healthy living for your brain and body, which is, I think, a program through the Be Well program, Tai Chi at the senior center. So that was one of the things that came out of the initial DEI committee, was trying to provide opportunities for people to get more involved in the community and connect with one another. And so one of the things that we are still working on is a comprehensive holiday calendar, making sure that we're being inclusive about what holidays we're publicizing, is something that's internally we're still working on, and working with the different departments to try to celebrate a more diverse set of holidays, is something that the senior center director and the library director are still actively working towards. So.
Amazing. Sounds good. All right. If somebody can make a motion to adjourn if there is nothing else we have to discuss tonight.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
I'll
Is
second
there a
that.
second? Yeah, great.
All right, then we can do a roll call to adjourn this meeting. Sarah?
Yeah.
Becca?
Yeah, hi.
Cynthia?
Aye.
Got Kristen?
I'm not voting because I'm not really on the committee. I'm
Right.
just-
That's my bad. Ashish?
In favor? Yes.
And then I, Miriam. All right. We are adjourned.
Thank you, guys.
All right.
Thanks,
you,
everyone.
everyone.
That was great. Take
Thank
care.
you.